Hello! In this video I'll show you how to make a blood splat decal from scratch. We'll start in Photoshop and finish up in Unreal Engine 4. I'll also go over a bit about what roughness and normal maps and those kind of stuffs are and what they're used for. And in the image here you can basically see what we're going to recreate. Let's get started. Alright, first off we want to create a new image, so we go to File, New, and we want the width to be 10 by 24 and the height to be 10 by 24, resolution at 72, RGB 8-bit, and transparent. And press OK. And first things first, we want to make sure we have the brush selected. If you have like pencil tool shown over here and you just want the brush to be selected, you can hold down left click over this icon and then select the brush tool. And then we want to press this button over here, and we get up this window. This is so we're gonna create the brush we're gonna use to paint the blood splatter effect. To do that, first we want to have this selected, soft round 30. The size doesn't really matter because you can set it over here if you have some other size, so long as it's a soft round one. That's fine. Hardness at 0, spacing at 25%. Shape dynamics should be set to size jitter at around 88%, pen pressure, minimum diameter at 0%, angle jitter at like 31ish, roundness jitter at like 55%, minimum roundness at like 34, something like that. And then over in scattering, we want it set to both axes at 1000%, count at 3, count jitter at like 75, and once again pen pressure. And then dual brush, want the mode to be color burn, and then you can scroll down or just take the from the top over there and have the soft 25 selected, and you can also once again set the size here if it's at some like 40 or whatever. Spacing should be 25% ish and count at 1, and make sure the smoothing is also selected. Once you've done all that, you should have something that looks like this. And then once that's done, we can press this button again, and then we start painting. It doesn't matter if it's perfect, just try and make something that ish looks like a splat. If it helps, you can also kind of like picture what happened. So maybe there's like a big splat over here, like this is where the actual accident or whatever happened, and then maybe it got like dragged or whatever. Something kind of like happened that has a more thinner outline. Generally, the more chaotic, the better, because accidents aren't usually very organized. That should be fine. And then we want to go over and select the entire layer by holding down Control and pressing this image, and then you will select everything we just drew. And then go to new layer over on this icon over here, and we can hide this because we're just going to use it for the selection mostly. And we want to go to make sure you have black and white selected. If you don't, you can press this icon here and it will automatically make it so you have black and white colors selected here. And then go to filter, render clouds, and then you should get something like this. If you're not exactly happy with the clouds, you can just undo if you get some really weird stuff, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, that should be fine. And then we want to go into filter gallery, and we want to select over in artistic, we want to select plastic wrap, and we want the highlight strength at like 8, detail at 1, and smoothness at max. And then we press OK. Then we'll jump right in to the filter gallery once again, and over in artistic we want to select paint daubs. Then we want to set the brush size at 14 and sharpness at 0 and brush type to sparkle. Then we press OK again, and you should have something that looks like this. With that done, we want to, since we're going to reuse this layer a bit, we want to create a copy of it. But first we'll call it, just double click on the name here and you can change it. We'll call it base. And then we want to hold the left mouse button down and drag it and drop it over the new layer button over here. That way we will duplicate this layer. We can hide this one. And then we want to make this brighter, since this is going to be our color. If we're going to don't worry about all the names and colors and all that stuff. I'm going to go into more detail later once we come inside Unreal. But we want to make it a little bit more brighter. So we still have this selected. We create a new layer on top of this one, and we swap. So we have white as our primary color, and we can press Shift F5, and we'll get the fill settings. And we want to set it to the foreground color, and then press OK. And now we get this selection filled. Then we go over here and set it to soft light. And then with this layer selected, we hold down Control and select the base copy. And then holding down Control and we press E, we will merge them together. And then we want to go over to Layer, Layer Style, Color Overlay. This is so we give the blood the actual color it will have. You can set it to kind of dark reddish color. I think maybe like 960101 should be pretty good. Press OK, and then we want to set it to multiply, and then OK. Now we want our background to be set to, make sure you don't have anything selected by selecting one of the selection tools, just clicking anywhere. So it's deselected. And then we want to go to the paint bucket, or press Shift F5 again when we have this new empty layer selected, and press Shift F5 and select the foreground color and make sure we have black selected over here, and press OK. And that's basically our color image. So we go to File, Save, we set it to JPEG, and we call it Color. 9 or above should be fine. I usually go with 9 or 10 in quality. And press OK. There. Now we're going to create our normal, or the image we're going to use to create our normal. So we go to the base and we hold it down and create another duplicate, and then we hide the base. So we have the base copy selected. And then we want to hold down Control and select this selection again, and then we go over to File, Filter, and then Render and then Clouds. And then we want to go over to Filter, but then over to Stylize and select Emboss. You want it to be set at like maybe -70% angle, 70 grade means amount at like 230%ish, and height at like 5 pixels. So you should get something that looks like this, and then press OK. Now with that done, we want, since we're going to reuse this embossing image, we can call this emboss, so we don't have to recreate it again later. But now we're going to go over here and select Overlay, over this image. So the emboss layer should be above the base copy layer. So you get something that looks like this. And then with the selection tool, or it could be a wand or whatever, you want to deselect this, drag it down, and create a new layer. But this time, since we're working with a normal, we want it to be set, instead of black or white, we want it to be set to actually a kind of like middle gray value. So something along like over here. Preferably, you can go over here and set it to 50. That way we know we'll have exactly 50 between black and white. And then press OK. And then we can just press Shift F5 over this new layer. And then once again the foreground color. So you get something like this. This is basically the image that we're going to use to create our normal map a bit later. There's also, in newer versions of Photoshop, you can actually go to Filter 3D and select, I believe it's Generate Normal Map. It's actually just called that. And you can use that. The newer versions of Photoshop has a much more powerful version. Since I'm using an older one, I've tested around with it a bit. I don't feel that the results are that good, so we're going to use a separate tool for that later. But for now, this normal map is done. So we go into File and select Save As. And then we want to save it like to normal, so we know it's not the actual normal map. That's only what we're going to use to create the normal map. And we save that. Okay, now it's time for the roughness. So we can hide these layers, and then we go to our base once again and create a duplicate of it. So we have a copy here, which we will now show. Since we're going to make a roughness map, we want to invert it. So we hold down Control and press the I key. So you get something that looks like this, or actually just invert it to what you have. And then we take the emboss layer we created from before and make sure it's the base layer we just created with emboss over it. But we're going to set this actually to color burn and drag it down to like maybe 70%. Looks pretty good, yeah. And yeah, we're actually done with that one. So we're just gonna make sure we show our black background once again, and then File, Save As, select JPEG once again, call this roughness. Now we only have our opacity layer left to create, and to do that we want to go over to either the base or layer 1 layer, hold down Control so we get this selection. Then we want to create a new layer, and then make sure you have black and white selected over here, either by pressing this button or by manually selecting it over here. We're going to the filter, render, clouds. Then we go on to filter again and select stylize, emboss. But this time we want the height to be set, instead of 5, to somewhere like 13 or something like that. And then we press OK. Then we want to go over to layer, layer style, color overlay, set it to white, and then set it to overlay as well. And we'll press OK. Then we drag the black background below the layer we just created, so you get something that looks like this. And then File, Save. We call this opacity. Okay, so with that done, we now want to create our normal map, and I'll also explain a bit what a normal map actually is. To do that, we're going to use this awesome site that's called cpetri.github.io/normalmap-online. And here we can actually see more clearly what the normal map actually is. It kind of looks like this, like a blue, green, reddish image. And what it actually is it's just an image that uses the red, green, and blue information basically to create the illusion of depth and detail on a surface. As you can see here, it actually manipulates the normals on the model. And the normals are what tells the 3D software how something should be shaded. So as you can see here, it looks like it's displaced actually, but when we look from the side here, we see it's still just a flat surface. It's just how the light, how it's shaded basically, that makes it look like it has depth. In case you have a displacement, you might want to make sure it's deselected here to actually see the result, because if we have the displacement selected, we can actually see a displacement happening, which is not actually what the normal does. That's what the displacement map does. Anyway, with that said, we want to go to our folder where we saved our images and want to select the 2 normal map and drag it and drop it over in this area here. Bam! And then we want to set the values to something along the lines of the strength to like 0.23, 25-ish, the level to like 0.4, 0.5-ish, or something like that. So you get something that looks like this. It's because we don't want something that's actually too intense, because blood isn't actually like it's not like a mountain or a hill or something. It's just very subtle, still very close to the ground. And then with that done, we want to go to the download button over here, save it, and then we go to the downloads folder and just copy or cut this into our own folder. And then with that done, let's head into Unreal. Alright, so once inside Unreal Engine 4, the first thing we want to do is to go over to Edit, Project Settings. And then over in the search field, we want to type in debuffer. And debuffer decals should be checked. And the reason, and we're also going to do another thing in the very shortly, but the reason we want to set this up is because if we have a deferred decal out here where it's lit, it will actually show up as normal. But if we drag the decal out into the shadows over here, it will actually not be visible. And it's kind of annoying, because you don't want to go around and slapping point lights everywhere wherever you have decals. That would be quite costly. So instead we use the debuffer, and we're actually going to enable this right now. But first we want to make sure we import our 4 maps: the color, normal map we just created, opacity, and roughness, not the normal. That's not what we're going to use anymore. And we just drag it and drop it inside of Unreal. Let's press OK over here. And then we want to create a new material. Let's call it like m_blood splat or something like that. And then we open the material up. And then what you want to do, first and foremost, is you want to set this material domain to deferred decal. And in the blend mode to translucent. And over in decal blend mode, this is where we want to select debuffer, translucent, color, normal, roughness, because these are the things we actually want to plug in. You can also select others like translucent color, and then we only have those pins. But right now we want all of these pins except for world position offset. And if you don't have the debuffer, translucent, blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff shown, you might need to restart. I'm not sure if it's just Unreal or just the level. Probably just the level, but I'm probably wrong about that. Anyway, if it's not shown, just restart and it should pop up. And with that said, we want to drag and drop our 4 maps in here. The color over here, normal over here, opacity over here, and then roughness. And we can just plug the roughness directly in and the opacity directly in as well, like so. And then we can also plug the normal directly in here as well. But then we want to do something that adds a little bit more to the realism, I feel, for this blood splat effect, and that is to actually use a cube map. And to do that, we want to add a texture sample, and over by the selection we want to go to the view options and make sure show engine content is checked. This is because we're going to use a cube map that's already inside of Unreal, and it's called, let's see, t underscore cube map underscore 01. A cube map is basically a source reflection values, but we're not exactly going to use it for the intended purpose right now, because we're going to use the normal. We're going to get a transform vector. It's just called transform here, but it's a transform vector. And from there we want to drag out and get a reflection vector. And then we want to plug this into the UV. We don't want a too intense effect, so we're gonna apply a multiply that's like times 02 should be good. And then we want an add node, and we plug from this multiply and the color in like so. And then we're basically done. So we're just going to play apply and save. And once that's saved, we're going to jump into the level, place our decal. Okay. And we'll go over to the search classes here, search for deferred decal, and drop it in. And when we drag and drop our material, this is basically how it looks. To make all these gizmos disappear, you can just press the G button. You can get a better look. Looks like it's a little bit more faded than I would have liked, so we can easily fix that by going over to the opacity over here, and we get another multiply. And to make basically this map more intense, basically, so we apply less of the gray, we can actually multiply it by, I think 2 should give us a proper fill, so maybe 1.5 should give us a kind of like some fade in between the middle, so it's just a completely filled in splat, so there's still some kind of fading out parts, which is kind of what we want. And let's see if that's true or not. Yeah, and we can see that it's more filled in right now, but not completely. It's just some spots where it's not entirely filled in. And we can also see what actually stuff that we did with the normals and roughness is most of the stuff doing most of the heavy lifting to make it more realistic. And we can easily see the effect they have if we just unplug them. So we just have the opacity and color. Because without, oh yeah, and the normal of course. Because these are actually the things that give most of the realism to the blood splat. Otherwise it looks very, very flat, as you're going to see very soon. Yeah, as you can see here, this is, I mean, you can see that it kind of looks like blood, but yeah, it looks very, very flat, like just painted on. So, but yeah, that's basically it. So we just plug this back in, and the normal as well. And then we're done. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was useful to you.